Hi, this is Naomi Bennett. Happy New Year. And we are going to review the 2013 results of seeing what actually happened. And 2013 was very dramatic, and 2014 looks like it's going to be even more so. So because of that, I am going to split this up into three videos. We're going to review the 2013 events and the stock market. Then we'll do an overview of the 2014 for the year, and then I do that by quarters. So I will also post the first quarter of how I see the projections for this coming year. So it'll be three videos. After that, you'll just see one video once a quarter for each quarter, and we'll do updates through the year, specifically on the stock market, because it seems to be a very dramatic year like 2013 was for the stock market in 2014, but maybe in the opposite direction. So let's start reviewing, because we had a very dramatic year with many, many big events, and I'll list them individually, and then we'll go through and go on the stock market. So let's go through and do a little bit of a video recap. So we started the year out with a bang, literally a bang, in that there was a Brazilian nightclub that had fireworks that killed 250 people. In February, we had the Russian meteor that exploded across Russia. And then we had a police officer that was on a rampage, a former police officer on a rampage in LA. And then interestingly, in February, Pope Benedict resigned, and on that very night that he resigned, lightning struck the Vatican, an interesting coincidence. And then in middle of March, Pope Francis was nominated the first pope from a very far distant country, which was Argentina. And what's very interesting is that very time that he was announced, there was a comet that was passing from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere. Another interesting coincidence. In April, we had the Boston bombing, where basically the U.S. was turned upside down for 2 days while they were doing a manhunt. And then there was a Bangladesh factory building collapse that killed 700 people. And then we had a mega explosion in West Texas where a fertilizer plant had exploded. In May, there was the Oklahoma tornado that was a level 5 on the extreme side. And then we had all kinds of sexual events that occurred during this time too. We had Pistorius, the Blade Runner, that had killed his girlfriend. And then we have a whole sexual scandal of the military for not reporting rape charges through the military. That is still working itself out this year. And then we had the 3 girls that were held as sexual captives in Ohio. And so we've had one event after the other because of Saturn in Scorpio and the lunar nodes in Scorpio having many, many issues regarding sex and sexual abuse. Then in July, there was a NASDAQ error where it was literally down for 3 hours. So now we're actually looking at the chart to compare the events. I have listed most of the major events on the left and the right hand side, and they are in chronological order. But pay attention that anything is red is related to the eclipse periods. The dates that are in red have actual astrological events that are very specifically oriented toward what was in the chart. The eclipse periods are always important. And then where the arrows are, particularly the Mars square Saturn, is in direct relationship to the stock market events. Although I found this year the stock market did not respond like it normally does. But we had stopped with talking about the NASDAQ error that had lasted for 3 hours. That was in July the 21st. In September, there was a massacre at the Kenya Mall that killed 62 people. And then in October, there was an interesting event with Bitcoin with the arrest of the website owner of Silk Road. And then Japan had a 7.3 quake very close to the Fukushima nuclear power plant that is still disabled. And we also had a huge typhoon in the Philippines that killed 6,000. That was on October the 8th. November was relatively quiet, but we did have the death of Mandela on December the 4th. And then we ended the year with more protests and with a bomb on a Russian train station in anticipation of the Winter Olympics. So we've had quite a few events that corresponded with the aspects, but particularly note at the very top here that I have that green line that represents the Jupiter's nodes, and the stock market heavily responded to that because there was a double aspect of Pluto on Jupiter, which is big expansion, and then we had, for an extra period of time toward the end of the year, we had Jupiter on Pluto's node. So it was a double impact. So let's go over and look at the chart for the S&P 500. All right, now we have the image of the S&P 500 rise in the stock market, and then I overlaid the astrological events so that we could see the comparison. What is normal that happened, if you look at my prior video casts, the reviews in 2010, 2011, 2012, is that we always found reversals in the stock market in eclipse periods. That didn't happen exactly this year. What we had that was overriding it was the green line that you see at the top. The transit of Pluto was on Jupiter's node. That is the most expansive aspect that you can have for a rise in the stock market. And this stock market wound up rising between, depending on which index, 25 to 30% over the entire year. So then we look and try and find out, well, did we have reversals? If you look at the two vertical purple lines, you'll see that the moon wobbles were fairly close with small dips in the stock market. The eclipses itself did very little except for the second eclipse. There was a small dip, but this market kept rising. And if you'll look also, you'll see that the biggest dip that was in June, that there was a Mars-Uranus aspect, so there was a small panic during that time. Otherwise, during the rest of the stock market, it totally ignored all of the world events. It just did not want to pay attention to anything but to push the market up. And that will continue a little ways into 2014, but please do not anticipate that what you saw in 2013 is going to continue for 2014. I think that's very unlikely. So this was a year of anomalies in that usually we see major dips during the eclipse periods, and except for the second one, why the market paid very little attention to the eclipses. All right, with this we will sign off, and we'll go on to review what we think 2014 will look like.